Hello, this is Reverend Don Lewis coming to you from the beautiful metaverse, and more specifically from beautiful Danville, Illinois, homeland of the Corellian tradition. And this is Midday with Reverend Don. And as you know, if you follow Midday with Reverend Don, um, you can type your questions or your comments onto whatever platform that you're watching on, assuming that you're watching live. And for the most part, they'll show up here in my chat room. There are certain platforms for which I'm not certain that this is true, but for most of them, they will show up here so we can talk directly. And I love that part of this particular broadcast. As you know, I've been broadcasting for many years, and in the past, most of our communication was after the fact. People commenting on the videos. I love the fact that today we can have our communication while we're live. So, welcome to the show. Today, we're going to talk about the crystal web and different energetic things you can do with the crystal web. I want to start by saying this is not going to be an encyclopedic um, look at that subject. We're going to talk about as much as we can. Hello to Bimby in the chat room. It's good to see you, Bimby. The crystal web is arguably, well, certainly to the best of my knowledge, the largest psychic engine that has ever been created. It is a series of linked access points around the world. Hello to Nikki in the chat room. And it really is around the world. There are a few places um, that have far more crystal access points for the crystal web than others, but they are pretty much everywhere. And they all link together as a single energetic network. It's likened to a web because they link through energetic connections that are basically artificially created meridians. The crystal access points are artificially created energy vortices. And I am a great believer in the idea that what we commonly think of as natural energy vortices of the Earth, in some cases are, but in other cases are also artificial. That when an area is used in a certain way, or imbued with a certain level of energy, it will become a vortex, regardless of whether it originally was one or not. And hello to Christine in the chat room. So, some of the great sacred sites of the world that are sitting on energetic vortices, in some cases, that vortex was already there before the sacred site, and in other cases, it was created by being used as a sacred site. And this actually goes back to some of the early ideas about ley lines, um, and the idea that many of them were created through use, as well as others that simply are natural energy centers of the earth. So the crystal web, in my mind, is part of a perfectly natural way of energetic working, where you create vortex points by the way that you're using your energy. So each of those crystal access points for the crystal web is a vortex, artificially created and linked through artificial meridians, and they go all over the world. And, they change. New ones come, old ones go. Generally speaking, once the energetic character is established, it will remain whether the physical vortex does or not, whether the crystal remains or not. Because once it's become an energetic entity, the loss of the physical element won't necessarily disrupt it. And hello to Antonio in the chat room. And this is a very important thing in terms of metaphysics in general, because since, well, as far as I know, as long as we've been around, we have, in various metaphysical circumstances, created um, energetic things in the astral plane using physical things to tie them to. But the physical things they're tied to are not necessarily required for the continued existence of the astral aspect. We see this in the ancient Egyptian tombs, where those grave goods were not necessarily intended for the corpse to be using in the tomb, and you can see this by the fact there would have been no room to be using it. Obviously, it was meant to be with them in the afterlife, in the astral plane, um, and clearly not the physical item, but its astral equivalent. And once created, the physical item wasn't necessarily still required, and you can see the Egyptians moving things in and out of tombs. The idea that they were always put there and left forever has been shown not to have been true. Grave goods were apparently frequently reused because once the astral aspect had been created, the physical object did not necessarily need to remain. And hello to Janet in the chat room. It's good to see you, Janet. Um, this is true also for the crystal web, but for everything that we do in terms of astral working that's also connected to a physical thing. One of the things that we often do in the Correllian tradition is create astral guardians. Hello to Reverend Charles in the chat room. It's good to see you, Reverend Charles. These are often connected to a statue or other object in the physical realm. But once the astral guardian is created, if something happens to that physical object, that doesn't mean that astral guardian goes away. There certainly are circumstances where it can, but not simply because the physical object goes away. We talk about that in the second degree lessons at some length, the circumstances um, according to which an astral guardian will continue or not continue, and why that is and how you deal with that. So this all speaks to the physical nature of the web. And as I was saying the other day, the web was created by Ed the Pagan on the 8th of August, 1988, which was a major harmonic convergence. It was created in Chicago. The very first crystal web access point is still there. It is spread out um, throughout the world since then. I am here in Danville. The first crystal web access point created in Danville was created on May 10th of 1994 at Greenwood House, and that crystal access point is still there, even though Greenwood House itself is not. And it was created during a solar eclipse. And we have been working with the crystal web and solar and lunar eclipses for decades. And we'll be doing that again on Monday. And I hope that you'll join us for that. Now, what is the crystal web? We've talked a bit about how it's built and about the durability of that building. If, as I say, if a squirrel digs up your buried crystal, that does not necessarily disrupt your energy point. Once it's been established, even if the crystal should go missing, that doesn't mean it ceases to exist. I won't say it might not cease to exist, but it doesn't mean that it necessarily does. And generally, the energy will keep it going. We use the crystal web for a lot of different purposes. We use it sometimes for communication, not in, generally speaking, the kind of conscious communication we're having right now, but a variety of forms of communication, especially around issues of healing, issues of trying to promote the energies of peace. One of the big things that we do in the Correllian tradition is the peace campaign, which is praying for peace and love and healing around the world. And this is one of those energies that the crystal web is very good at transmitting. And if you think about it, that includes a kind of communication. It communicates that energy to people around the world. We use it for healing. We send healing energy through the web, and we've often done this on the occasion of natural disasters. And the energy is put into the web and distributed through it around the globe. We also use it to attune to natural events like the solar eclipse and to try to keep our energies in sync with the energies of the universe. And that's what we'll be doing on Monday in part. But we also use the crystal web on an individual basis. That's more what we're going to talk about today. And we can use it in all those different ways and others. We can use it also as an aid to our individual magic. We can use it as an aid to meditation. The crystal web can function for an individual in the same way that any other energetic battery does. That is to say, you connect into the crystal web and you receive energy from it. That energy um, is just like if you have created a magical circle, it will amplify the energy you're working with. The crystal web will as well. It will raise the vibration of everything. It will give you extra energy to work with. And you can call upon this for whatever you would need extra energy for. You can call upon it for meditation if you feel you need extra energy for that. You can call upon it for magic. You can call upon it for healing. And in all of those cases, to use it in that way, what you want to do is to connect to your access point and simply draw that energy into you. There's a vast amount of energy in the crystal web. It is replenished um, really every day, specifically through ritual once a month. And um, it is a vast amount of energy. And I will say that I've seen some people who, when they first work with the crystal web being entirely opened, find the energy overwhelming because there is so much there. And hello to Reverend Mary in the chat room. Um, it is a vast amount of energy. You don't want to necessarily pull that entire amount of energy to you like any other energy battery that you might use. You want to draw what you need and release any excess. This is why we constantly talk about releasing, why we constantly talk about grounding. You don't want to overwhelm yourself with too much energy. You want the energy that you need to do what you want to do. And again, you connect, as we talked about on Tuesday, to your energetic crystal access point with a beam of light or other energetic connection, and you would pull that energy from the web into your heart, into yourself, um, in the opposite form of how you would put energy in. Very simple. If you wanted to do healing, you would pull on that energy, you would charge it for what you want to use it for, and you would put it into whatever healing that you are doing. You can also use the web to charge crystals. You can create crystal grids connected to the web and channel that energy throughout all of those crystals to create a temporary energetic battery to use for your healing or your magic. Um, you can use the web to cleanse your crystals. You can use it to charge your crystals. But you can also use it again in crystal access um, grids where you would use different kinds of crystals charged by the energy of the web to bring that energy into a local vortex that you would use while you needed it. Um, if you were doing something like Reiki, for example, you might call upon the energy of the web in the same way that you would call upon the energy of the universe, because it is, in the end, an effect of the energy of the universe to strengthen your ability to focus that divine energy. If you were doing pranic healing, you would use it to strengthen your energy for that purpose. If certain kinds of energetic healing can be quite taxing on the person who is doing them. So, using an energetic battery like the crystal web can alleviate that aspect of healing. It can give you all the energy that you need without using your own, just as you can attach to the ambient energy of the universe. These are some of the things that you can do with the crystal web. Um, you can also, well, you can use it to strengthen any kind of working, really. But one of the things we talk about is how to call forth the soul. That is to say, how to have a psychic communication with another person at the astral level. And you can use the crystal web to strengthen that connection as well. You can use the crystal web's network around the planet to help to focus your energy to where you want it to go, either for that sort of working or for a geographic healing or the healing of a particular person in a particular way. And, of course, when you do psychic healing, when you do psychic reading, etc., you don't necessarily need that literal connection, but it also doesn't hurt anything. And it can be helpful. I always say to people that you don't need anything. Um, I have at different times had gigantic collections of beautiful altar furnishings, but I never thought I needed any of them. I've still got some pretty nice altar furnishings, um, and I love to set a beautiful altar. But to me, the altar is actually the heart. It is your connection to spirit. The external altar merely represents this. So things are not important. This is also true with energetic batteries and the like. They are helpful, they are beneficial, they're never necessary. But can they be beneficial? Oh my goodness, yes. And hello to George in the chat room. It's good to see you, George. Hello to Dragon in the chat room. It's good to see you, Dragon. Hello to Jason in the chat room. It's good to see you, Jason. And seeing Dragon in the chat room causes me to ask, are people seeing the closed captions today? Apparently there was a problem with them the other day, and I'm not quite sure what happened. They should be running. If you're not able to see them, please let me know. Um, I don't know that I can do anything right at this moment, but I'll try to straighten it out by tomorrow if there's still a problem. Um, I suppose I can look quickly myself and see if they're running properly. Oh, yeah, they appear to be. I have no idea what happened the other day, and no idea how I fixed it, but it's fixed. And Mary says, "Yes, I see closed captions today. I just looked myself. I see them." Well, we are in a Mercury retrograde, and I'm a great believer in not worrying overly about Mercury retrograde. But it can cause the occasional um, issue. And now Bimby says I don't see them, but maybe I don't have them turned on. That could be an issue. Could also be that it's not the broadcast, but the pages they're being received on. So I may have to look at the different pages and make sure they've all got closed captions on. Um, for example, I just looked on the Corellian Tradition page. The closed captions are going there. They're going on Corellian Publishing. They're going on Witch School, the official page. That's the only ones I can see right at this moment. But there may be some where they're not. Now, Dragon says, yes, the closed caption is working. Thank you. I'm very glad to know that because I know that that is important for Dragon and also for perhaps many other viewers who require the closed captions. I myself usually will um, read closed captions, even though I'm not especially hearing impaired, but I have enough trouble sometimes that it's helpful for me to see things written. But I've also discovered over the years that closed captions don't always reflect what's actually being said. For example, I've noticed that sometimes the closed captions, instead of saying that I'm coming from the beautiful metaverse, say that I'm coming from the beautiful metaverse, and I feel like I'm in Bloom County that day. But what are you going to do? But these are some of the things that we do with the crystal web, and when you think about it, it's kind of a metaphysical equivalent of the internet in its way. Um, Except it predated most people's knowledge uh, of the coming internet. And it does, of course, work differently, being an astral creation. Now, Dragon says, yes, sometimes that happens, but I can guess, and that's good. My friend Mike and I used to watch the closed captions um, on television back, 20 years ago, and I think that the hard of hearing people must think the rest of us are all crazy because they were not very good at that time. They're so much better now, and I think that's a very important thing. So we do try to make sure our closed captions are working. Um, the crystal web is a unique creation. It's certainly not the only time anyone has ever used an energetic construct to convey energy over far distances. But I don't know that anyone has ever created any energetic construct so large, so widely distributed, and used by so many people. And I think, one, it's a sign probably of metaphysical things to come, but also a valuable tool for the future. And as we're talking about today, there are many ways to use it and many different things that you can do. Um, and Mary tells me, not in the chat room, that it's actually on YouTube that we don't have the closed captions showing. I'll have to look at that because I've turned them on YouTube several times, um, and it seems like they have to be frequently reset. I don't quite get it, but I will go in and do that because all of our viewers are important to us, and we want to make sure that everyone can understand the program within the context of what's available to us now. Um, I do realize we also have viewers for whom English is not their first language, um, and that's a little bit harder to deal with. But there are many translation programs available today, and I'm sure there are going to be many more in the future. And in this very physical format, we're going out to people all over the world. We often have viewers from India, from Australia, from Africa, from South America. And it's really remarkable to me that we have come to this point in history. And the crystal web is the same thing, it's everywhere. There are people who use the crystal web who will never physically meet possibly any other person who's using the crystal web, but it connects us energetically. Now, Dragon has a question about the solar eclipse. Is it better to avoid the ritual event during the solar eclipse? Well, if we mean the ritual that I'm doing, I would say no. It's better to join it right at that time. And it is basically the charging of a crystal to attune to that energy. So it shouldn't take your attention so much that you cannot also appreciate the eclipse in its, let's say, in its full glory. Here in Danville, we're going to have like 98% totality. So we should see quite a bit of the eclipse. Depending, of course, on exactly what we've got for weather, but it will be hard to avoid that. Um, and even while I'm doing the ritual, I certainly hope um, to be able to see the eclipse itself. And I have my little eclipse sunglasses to wear while that's happening. Because, of course, you don't look directly at it without something like that. And we also have a phone guard for that same purpose because you want to be careful aiming your phone at the eclipse for the same reason it can damage it, the sun. So um, if you're planning to watch it, make sure you've got something to guard your eyes. But I highly recommend doing so. And yes, I would say definitely join the ritual. I plan to be broadcasting live. And um, at the same time, if you want to wait until after the totality and then um, join the ritual through the recorded version, you can certainly do that too. It just, in my opinion, would not be as strong an energy. But the effect of the eclipse is not only during that moment of totality, but leading up to and following after. It's like a full moon. The full moon is not only the moment of a particular aspect between the sun and moon, it is also several days leading up to and after. That's why a full moon is not a single night in traditional metaphysical reckoning. And the eclipse is not only the exact moment, but the shadow on either side, the umbra. So I would say no, it's not necessary to avoid the ritual event during the solar eclipse at all. But if you find for some reason that that is necessary, you can still join in it after the fact. And we will be opening the crystal web and working with the crystal web for that ritual. We will be attuning the crystal web to the energy of the eclipse, which is an energy of renewal and rebirth, as well as charging a crystal for ourselves to keep on our altars or carry with us, to keep that energy of rebirth and renewal around us. And I don't know about you, but I think that this is exactly the time for rebirth and renewal. Um, I think it will be highly beneficial. Now, Dragon says, I learned that the new moon is the same day as solar eclipse, and this heightens that energy even a little bit more because what is the new moon? It is the beginning of a new lunar cycle. So this is all about new beginnings, revitalization, renewal, rebirth, moving forward. It is an energy that I think all of us really want to bring into our lives. And regardless of our spiritual persuasions, I think this is something we all would want to attune to. Now, some people, of course, choose to relate to eclipses in a more negative sort of way, but some people are just focused on the negative. In my mind, it's whether you focus on the disappearance of the sun's light or its return. Traditionally, omens were often seen in eclipses for the removal of something important. I see, because we consciously interact with energy, we don't just take what we get, that it's the removal of what we no longer need. Um, and the rebirth of what we do. So that's what I will be focused on. I hope that you will focus on it too. That will be Monday. Uh, it will be April 8th. And on our Monday program, we'll be talking about the ritual at noon at our normal time, noon central. And then at the time of totality, which will be around 1 p.m. central, just a little bit before, I will come back on the air for the ritual. And in the meantime, I will be heading outside so that I'm actually under um, the sky to see the eclipse. You should be able to see the effect of it, um, and I think it will be a very memorable ritual. We've, as I say, done many eclipse rituals over the years. We've done eclipse rituals for solar eclipses. We've done eclipse rituals for lunar eclipses because they both have to do with rebirth and renewal. And these are energies we feel very, very strongly about as being um, the things that we really want to attune to. I often say that my attitude has always been certainly about preserving the good things of the past, but focused on the future and carrying those good things into the future and creating new things. And that's very much what the energy of a solar eclipse is about. Now, in 1994, when we did that first solar eclipse ritual with the crystal web, we were also focused um, on creating an energetic pathway for the Corellian tradition um, to renew its roots in the Danville area, because this is where we come from. This is where the tradition developed. And so I'm also going to be focusing in this ritual on the renewal of our Corellian homeland here, the renewal of the energy for our Corellian homeland here. And that will be, for me, in particular, part of that energy. I hope that you will join me in that focus as well. And again, we'll talk much more about that on Monday before the actual ritual itself. Now, tomorrow will be our weekly roundup. I've actually got an interesting announcement for tomorrow, maybe a couple of interesting stories, and I shall look forward to seeing you then. I see that we've come to the end of our half hour. I want to thank you for joining me, and I will see you tomorrow. And let us close with our prayer, as we always do. Divine Mother Goddess, Divine Father God, beloved ancestors, we come to you this day with thanks and love for all that you do for us in our lives, and we ask you to help us to attune ourselves to the energies of the universe and to use these to move forward easily and with grace in life. And when it is not possible for us to move in the same direction of the universe. Help us still to find ways to do this with grace and ease. Help us to use those natural items around us, as well as to create those energetic resources and other resources that we need when we need them. Help us to remember that we are not bound by anything, but rather can always find a way to create what we need and do what we need to do. Beloved Mother Goddess, beloved Father God, beloved ancestors, we thank you with great love and thanks. Knowing you are always with us, we thank you for your presence and may be blessed now and always. And I thank you for your presence. May you be blessed now and always, and I'll see you tomorrow.